Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration to order. Just I want to say a few words about the health and safety. Just a reminder to all attendees in the room to maintain a physical distance of at least 2 meters and to wear a mask as long as physical distancing is not assured. This is a hybrid meeting. Some members are appearing in person in the parliamentary present and other members are appearing remotely. Reminder to all the members, please speak at a pace slow enough for interpreters to keep up. Do not speak over one another. The clerk will be tracking the raising hands in case someone wants to speak and keeping a speaking list for the chair. Reminder regarding the recorded votes. Pursuant to the order adopted by the House on September 23rd, all questions shall be decided by the recorded vote except for those decided unanimously or on division. The meeting is being webcast and is available also on the PAL view. Today, we have some committee business in the beginning, and then we will be going and starting the study on the impact of COVID on citizenship and immigration. Before we go into committee business, I just want to let everyone know that the clerk has distributed a revised calendar of possible upcoming meetings. The meeting schedule is determined by the whips of all parties. But we have the information for the next meeting. The next meeting will be held on Tuesday, November 3rd, same time from 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. Some deadlines about which I want to inform all the members. The committee, the main estimates 2020-21, the deadline to report the estimates to the House is Friday, November 27th. Supplementary estimates B 2020-2021. The deadline to report the subs to the House is not later than 3 sitting days before the final sitting of the supply period ending not later than December 10, 2020, or 3 sitting days before the last allotted day in the current period, which has not been allotted as yet. The department, IRCC, advises that members may request individual briefings by the department. The clerk can compile names of members who wish to receive individual briefings. So these were some of the deadlines which I wanted to give and some opening remarks. So first of all, we will begin today's meeting with committee business. We had the subcommittee meeting, and the committee business for today is adopting the first report of the subcommittee on agenda and procedure. The minutes of the meeting have been circulated by the clerk to all the members. Can I have the motion to adopt the subcommittee report on agenda and procedures? Mr. Dhaliwal?
Do I propose?
You are on the mute. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me, Madam Chair?
Yes.
So someone has to
move the motion to adopt
the... So I'm moving, yeah. That's what
okay.
I meant.
Do I have the unanimous... Yes, please go ahead.
I move the motion forward, Madam Speaker.
Do I have the unanimous consent to adopt the motion of the report of the subcommittee on agenda and procedure, which has been circulated? Everyone agree? The first report of the subcommittee on agenda and procedure is adopted. Today, we are starting our study on the impact of COVID-19 on the immigration system, and the committee will start hearing from the witnesses today. For our first panel, we have as individuals Chantal Munchner, pedagogical advisor, Shagap De Jokar. Sorry if I pronounced the name wrong. As an individual also, Santa J. Ono, President and Vice Chancellor, the University of British Columbia. And our third witness for the first panel is Chantal Dube, research and content writer representing spousal sponsorship advocates. And we also have from spousal sponsorship advocates, Syed Farhan Ali and Rumila Mirza. I welcome all the witnesses. Thank you for appearing before the CIMM committee. We will start with Chantal Meitner. You have 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Madam Chair, I just had one comment before we begin.
Yes, Ms.
I had a
Danger.
question for the committee. Do we have an update from the minister of when he will be able to appear before committee in response to Jenny Kwan's motion passed last week?
Just 1 second. We don't have any answer as yet, so I will update as soon as I have information on that.
Okay, and as you're doing your consultations on that, may I suggest that we also consider an evening committee meeting for that? My understanding is there are 2 of those that we could get into the queue for each week that we may be able to meet with the minister if that's more amenable to his schedule.
Okay, I will find information and update all the committee members. So we will, with this, we will start hearing from the witnesses. The first witness is Chantal Meitner. You have 5 minutes, Ms. Meitner. You can please start.
Bonjour. Hello. Hello, ladies. Hello, gentlemen. Thank you very much for welcoming me and for giving us this opportunity. And thank you for having initiated this meeting. First of all, I'd like to tell you a bit about the impact on colleges and other institutions in Canada. According to a study by Colleges and Institutions Canada, these institutions have been greatly impacted. In 2018, international students injected $21.6 billion in the Canadian GDP. According to another study carried out in the spring on the impact of the pandemic, the losses would be $3.1 billion for 2020-2021 alone. The interpreter is having trouble hearing the speaker properly. I'll continue as best I can. If ever the market were to collapse because of the pandemic, there would be losses of $10 billion for Canada in the coming school years, or a drop in revenue of 46%, still according to data from CIMM Canada. The Federation of CEGEPs is in charge of 44 CEGEPs, and there are 176,000 foreign students at CEGEPs were that number in 2019. 90%, rather 60% of CEGEP directors believe that international recruitment is very important, whereas only 43% believe that in 2014. This interest is even stronger in regions outside of the major metropolitan areas. Why? Because large cities already receive a lot of immigrants, whereas regions have to work extra hard to attract foreign students. So regional CEGEPs are very, very strong in this respect, and our programs depend on foreign students. They also help us make up the drop in population. They offer a good labor pool as well. They're qualified. They have training suitable for job market. To recruit students, CEGEPs face many challenges, many immigration-related challenges. Our students want to study abroad, and we recruit students abroad as well, but these 2 worlds are completely different. Foreign students must go through a whole labyrinth of demands from the federal government, from the provincial government, and from the education department. The Quebec authorization certificate, there's that. You also need a intern. Unfortunately, the interpreter is going to have to interrupt service. The sound is really not good enough to allow for a faithful interpretation.
Apparaissent disproportionnés. Il doit d'abord passer par toutes les étapes d'un travailleur étranger alors qu'il réaliserait
Sorry, can you
stage...
please stop? Like, I think there is some interpretation issue. You have to stop the clock. So there is not, translation is not. Sorry, we just have to figure out the interpretation.
Oui.
Some problem?
Est-ce que je parle trop rapidement aussi?
You have to speak a bit louder.
OK.
Move your mic a little up.
D'accord. Un peu plus fort? Un peu plus fort?
Is it better?
Et Madame Munger, c'est
Oui.
le greffier qui vous parle.
Oui.
Prière. Prière de lever votre microphone.
Oui. Ça va?
Est-ce qu'on peut vous écouter 10 ou 15 secondes?
Oui. Est-ce que ça va? Est-ce que c'est mieux de cette manière? Est-ce que vous entendez bien? Est-ce que je dois parler plus fort?
Non, c'est mieux. Et votre vitesse était très bien, soit dit en passant. Merci,
OK,
vous êtes très
parfait.
posé.
C'est bon. D'accord.
Can we continue?
Please start.
D'accord. D'accord. Alors, donc, je parle.
I was also speaking of students who want to carry out internships in Quebec. These students are not facilitated in their efforts. In fact, the demands are disproportionate. They must jump through a bunch of hoops. They have to satisfy foreign worker demands, even though they're only going to work for a few weeks as intern. And we are not allowed to help them in their efforts because of immigration laws. The question of reciprocity with other universities is also very difficult. We can easily send interns abroad, but it's very hard for us to receive interns here. There are also two paradoxes I'd like to mention. First of all, some students are turned down from the IRCC, although they have the linguistic skills and although they've received a bursary from the Canadian government. These students are mainly from African countries, French-speaking African countries.
Your time is up, so maybe you can talk further when we come to the round of questioning. Next witness is Shanta J. Ono, President and Vice Chancellor for the University of British Columbia. Shanta J. Ono, you have 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Good afternoon. First, let me say it's an honor to join you today from UBC on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. I want to further acknowledge the traditional territories from which each of you is joining. Canadians have long understood that our open, multicultural society is a major competitive differentiator and a major key to our long-term prosperity as a nation. The current moment offers an opportunity for Canada to be more competitive for international talent and to bring more economic value and more skilled immigrants to Canada. Our population is aging, and these new skilled immigrants will be crucial to guaranteeing the long-term quality of life of all Canadians and our post-pandemic recovery. Other jurisdictions like Germany, United Kingdom, have prioritized attracting and retaining international students. And Canada needs to ensure that we aren't placing ourselves in a position where we can't compete and attract this much needed talent. International students are also a major contributor to Canada's research enterprise and enrich the learning environment of all of the Canadian students on our campuses. And importantly, many international students choose to stay and make Canada their home, representing a major source of highly skilled talent needed for the Canadian economy, a resource we know in Canada needs especially as we emerge from this pandemic. As many of you know, international students bring significant benefits to Canada, both economically as well as socially. International students contribute more than $20 billion per year to the Canadian economy and play a significant role in Canadian post-secondary revenues. Last year at UBC alone, of the $650 million in undergraduate tuition revenue, more than 60% came from international undergraduate students. It goes without saying that COVID-19 continues to have profound impacts, and that is particularly true for the post-secondary sector and our ability to welcome international students and researchers. I want to thank the federal government for its extraordinary efforts to ensure that Canada continues to be a leading global center for international education and a destination of choice for international talent. I want to particularly thank Minister Mendicino, Minister Baines, and Ng, and the many public servants who have worked collaboratively with universities, the U15 of which I'm chair, and Universities Canada, and with the Canadian Bureau of International Education to address new and unique pressures facing our immigration system and to create supports for international students in light of the pandemic. In that spirit, and in recognizing the incredible challenges that face the government in operating our immigration system during a global pandemic, there are a few areas in which we can continue to make improvements together. First, responsibility being given to the post-secondary sector to manage and support the quarantine of students entering Canada to study. We're doing so very successfully. Second, improved processing times for study and work permits, particularly as we gradually return to in-person instruction and research across Canada. Third, greater flexibility in processes that reflect these unique times. Fourth, building even closer ties between the immigration department and universities as we work through permit processing issues and many specific challenging individual cases. And lastly, ensuring international students and researchers continue to be seen as an essential part of Canadian society as we look to new pandemic measures, such as eligibility for an eventual vaccine. I look forward to your questions and our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ono. And you finished your opening remarks just slightly over 4 minutes, so that's good. Now we will go to our third witness, spousal sponsorship advocates, and Chantal Dube, the research and content writer, will be giving her opening remarks. Ms. Dube, you have 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through my involvement with the spousal sponsorship advocates over the last several months, I have been a witness to the suffering of many couples and families as they try to manage the worries and difficulties of the pandemic, all the while contending with isolation from their immediate family members, who form their primary support network. When the pandemic took hold and government processes were halted, hills became mountains. As Canadian spouses and partners, our ability to travel to visit with our foreign spouses was nullified due to border closures, essential quarantine measures, and air travel becoming a risky proposition and a scarce commodity. With that change of circumstances, the impact of notorious temporary resident visa refusals for foreign spouses on the grounds of paragraph 179B became more than a nuisance. It became a very real barrier to family reunification, leaving us effectively unable to visit with one another, unable to witness the birth of a firstborn child, unable to provide family care during a medical or mental health emergency, unable to provide the support that may have prevented such emergencies from occurring in the first place. Our spouses are regularly denied TRVs due to fears that they will overstay their welcome, and yet no one in their right mind would put the long-term goal of permanent family reunification at risk by doing such a thing. Our applications for spousal sponsorship regularly linger in the system for absurd amounts of time due to fears that our marriages are not genuine. And yet, the overwhelming majority of relationships are genuine, even if they may be unusual. The government's measures that are in place to protect against unauthorized migration and marriages of convenience are measures that impose hardship on all in order to catch a small few. I would like to draw the committee's attention to the brief that has been submitted by the spousal sponsorship advocates and to make its members aware that we have collected several examples of personal testimony related to this issue that are available upon request. The brief puts forth information and evidence to demonstrate the extent of the impact of existing government policies and processes as they apply to spousal sponsorship, as well as recommendations. It speaks to the profound effects that they have had on individuals and families as compounded by the global COVID-19 crisis over these last 7 months. To provide you with a personal example of that damage, I give you Mr. Syed Farhan Ali.
Thank you very much, Chantal, and thank you, Honorable Madam Chair and Honorable members of the House. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to highlight the issues we have gone through during the 34-month process of my spousal immigration case. I will try my best to squeeze the miseries of 34 months in 2 minutes. The current system basically lacks compassion and empathy. During 34 months, we have suffered through several severe mental stress, anxiety, depression, feelings of deprivation, lack of sleep and appetite, and the most important, suicidal thoughts. I have missed the birth of my kids, but thanks to the United States, they granted me a 5-year B1, B2 visa in 2016 by only knowing that my wife is Canadian and I wish to see her. I was somehow able to see my kids after a couple of months in USA. I've missed their births. We have spent like thousands of dollars on travels and etc. I've missed their first step, their first word. My wife takes care of 6 kids and a sick mom, and she has faced all the storms alone up till now. Regarding the process, it's stressful, unclear. It keeps the applicant in dark. There are long silent gaps after submission of additional documents, causing unnecessary delays and stress, while other streams get approved in 6 to 8 months. Visit visas being denied for applicants from developing countries because of 179B, judging the application on the basis of wealth and properties. Relationships mean nothing. Why would someone overstay in Canada and jeopardize their case? Spouses are immediate family. We are not tourists. These are few of many issues we faced.
Sorry, Mr. Farhan.
Sympathetic...
Sorry for interrupting. Your time is up. We will have to go into the round of questioning. Thanks to all witnesses. And we will now start with our first round. So we have Mr. Hallen for 6 minutes. Mr. Hallen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First and foremost, I want to thank the advocacy group. We had a rally that most of us attended here, that most of my other honorable colleagues attended over the weekend. And just to hear the courage all of you had in sharing your personal stories and what you've had to overcome so far, just like some of the testimony we heard here today. It was very disappointing to see that no Liberal ministers showed up to that rally, even though they were invited, to hear the real life impact that you all are facing with these delays and what's happening. It really is more personal when you hear these stories, because we do hear about these through our offices. We try to help accommodate, but these are real life impacts that you guys have on your lives. So thank you for sharing your stories. Again, many courageous stories were told, many heart-wrenching testimonies from the many speakers that spoke at that rally. I also want to just begin by giving you a little bit more opportunity, just a minute or so. I know that's not enough time, but to just share a brief overview of what was spoken of inside that rally, and a brief overview of what the concerns were. Mr. Farhan, if you could please share a little bit more of your experience.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. The main things we have suffered, like there were so unpredictable delays in the processing. If we are asked to submit the additional documents, that means another 6 months are gone to get a reply from them. And there are two different systems like ECAS and GCMS, where some people have access to GCMS and some people have access to ECAS. And we, like those on ECAS, they are like in total dark. It's a dark tunnel. We just get an update, like your medical is cleared or whatever, and there's nothing again. Criminality checks, security checks, they are like a long, they cause a long delay. After you're passing your eligibility, like my eligibility took 2 years to pass. Mine is a second marriage, and it's a huge, huge red flag. And it took me a long time to justify that my marriage is genuine, and I love my wife and kids. And like there's so many things we have suffered, we have gone through. We have spent like thousands of dollars in meeting each other just to hold my kids in my hands, in my arms. We have been through a lot, and so much of mental stresses, health issues, and anxiety. We have been through a lot. And yep, now my application has been approved, thankfully. Thank God for that. And this is because of the support of my group, and we got it approved. But still, I'm here in Pakistan, and I'm waiting to be united with my family. Thank you.
Again, we appreciate your and being a voice for the rest of the group. We're so glad to hear that your application was finally approved. But I know there are so many others that spoke at that rally whose applications aren't approved, and they're in such dire need of this. You touched on some very, very important things that I wanted for you to, and if Ms. Dubé would like to also chime in on that, is that we know that these delays have real life impacts, especially on people's personal lives, not only just for the sponsors, but for the applicants, for the whole family. Like you said, there's missed birthdays. You don't hear your kids speak for the first time or even walk. These are major milestones that any parent, I'm a parent as well, that you want to be able to be there to hug your kids. You don't get to celebrate holidays together. The effects that are mental and physical on your health are enormous. Not to mention the financial, because that's a huge burden on its own. I'd like you guys to chime in on what you've been hearing from the rest of the group as well, of some of the other heart-wrenching stories, because I really want to put that on record, where you feel that the Liberal government has failed, or this minister has failed, in being able to respond to you guys properly.
Yes, thank you. Just to be clear, I think a lot of the ongoing issues that we are facing have been around for many years. We certainly don't want to pin them on any government in particular. We only wish for them to be addressed so that in such a way that they can be, the system can be improved on an ongoing basis well into the future, so that others won't have to suffer the same troubles that our group members have suffered. We have stories of members who have been through multiple attempts to bring their spouses to Canada over the course of many years. They have been refused for reasons that they could not understand. They have children between them, and the pandemic, with the additional 7 months delay on existing lengthy wait times, has simply been the straw that broke the camel's back for many people. So we are, in a sense, pleased that we now have a community that has gathered across the nation to share these stories. And as I noted previously, we have many of these stories written and prepared, so they are available to the members of the committee upon request. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will move to Mr. Dhaliwal. Mr. Dhaliwal, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you,
Please,
Sister Salma.
go ahead.
Thank you, Sister Salma. My heart is with many couples like Farhan Ali, who are the victims of Regulation 4. I want to remind the honorable conservative member that this Regulation 4 was brought in by Jason Kenney at that time, which gives the onus on to the couples to prove that not only the marriage is genuine, but in fact, when they enter into the marriage, their intentions were to be husband and wife, and that is what is causing a lot of problems, and it was created by Jason Kenney and the conservatives. But my focus right now, the question is, gonna go to Dr. Ono and Chantal Munger, particularly the students. When we were going through the last election, we were hearing a lot of outcry from the parents that the international students are taking these spots for local students here. In fact, I agree more with you both. When we know that the international students contribute to our economy and provide immense economic, cultural, and social contributions to Canada. Dr. Ono, could you elaborate on how international students enrich your campus and institution as a whole, and British Columbia as a whole when it comes to particularly this province?
Oui. Tout d'abord.
Yes. First of all, when we're talking about international students taking over the places that our own children would have, well, we're a regional cégep. With the drop in the birth rate across Quebec, we don't have enough students. So it's a mistake to say that these international students take over spaces that would otherwise go to Canadian students. We have the equipment, we have the installations necessary to welcome all these students. We have a job market where we have a labor shortage. We need these students. We're missing students. We're short of students in various fields of expertise, technical, for example. So we need business to work with us, with our colleges and institutions, to find the labor that we need. And I mentioned a paradox in my testimony. It's that we manage to recruit students from abroad, but then their applications are turned down by the government. At the same time, we have businesses that have to seek foreign workers to fulfill positions in their business, whereas we could bring these students in and have them trained to work for the businesses. They speak the language, they're interested in learning a workplace-focused training program, and the businesses could choose the candidates. The students would want to stay and live in the area afterwards. Mr. Ono?
Yes. First of all, let me say that to your point, the international students who apply to our university and to many of the universities across Canada compete in a completely separate pool. What happens is that we have funded seats for domestic students. You know that's the case at UBC. And we first fill those seats. And then each faculty looks at how many more additional students they can bring in that are international. It's the truth actually is that the international students first, the resources that they bring into the institution actually allow us to educate more Canadians than if they were not at our universities, number one. So the impact is one, to increase availability of education for our domestic students. And second, as you know, there's a great learning environment that results from having different people with different perspectives that are together in the same class. And I submit it's very good for the world as well to have different people from different places with different ideas and cultures coming together.
We have made many changes, like working hours and also counting the time the overseas students have been doing the study overseas. What are some of the other improvements do you suggest to current framework for international students?
Let me say, thanks again for that question. We're grateful for the changes that have been made, very grateful. And we think there's an opportunity first to look at processing times for student permits, visas, and cooperative or work integrated learning opportunities. Those permits continue to be a little bit of a struggle for our students in our post-secondary institutions. If we can work together to decrease the time for receiving those study and work permits, it would greatly make the system of students coming to Canada much easier. And it's really critical, as I said, because we're in a global competition for these students. One other thing, concrete thing that can be done is to waive the biometric collection abroad for a limited time. And there's no way for them to, for example, give biometrics due to closure of VACs, the VACs in their country or region, to allow students to start co-op jobs during the pandemic as soon as they apply for the work permit.
Sorry for interrupting, Mr. Ono. The time is up. Maybe you can go into further details with someone else as we go around. Next, we have Ms. Normandine. Ms. Normandine, you have 6 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'd like to go back to Ms. Munger on the question of students coming from Francophone, from French-speaking Africa. I understand there's a dichotomy between the fact that these students are being offered scholarships, but then that they can't receive their visa, their student visa. Why is it that the student visas are being refused, if you know? And what can we do to prevent this and to prevent the loss of Francophone students in Quebec? Answer. There's a dichotomy in the fact that some students are fast-tracked through from India or from Pakistan, whereas from French-speaking Africa, it takes longer. And that's where our students come from. Yet we can attract students from Côte d'Ivoire and other French-speaking countries. These students are often very, very good students. They receive scholarships. And once they've gone through the whole process of applying, often their student visa is denied. The reason given is that they don't have the funding necessary, and yet they receive $16,000 a year in bursaries. So it seems that there's a lack of communication between various departments. We'd like to be able to welcome these students who have received scholarships from French-speaking countries. My next question is that you said that regional colleges have to be more competitive to attract foreign students. I'd like to hear a little bit more about this idea. What do the colleges do? Answer. What I was saying earlier was that in the region, we have a growing need, and foreign students help us make up, for example, the labor shortage. They also help us fill programs that are currently threatened for lack of students. They help us contribute to the vitality of the region as well and the vitality of our college. As for recommendations, first of all, we could make several suggestions on the immigration process or student visa process to begin with. There's a great deal of hoops to jump through. There have been closures, errors, and they've been made worse by the pandemic. Biometric stations have been closed. Post offices have been closed. There have been other errors. And what we suggest is that some services be offered once again. For example, direct line to a person at IRCC to answer our questions. Communication between the various centers to prevent errors that have been increasing in these last few months. And an increase in the number of agents to analyze the files. Right now, we're talking about a 15-week delay for a student visa and 26 if those students are coming from Senegal. So a direct line and better service for the students. Yes, there is a direct line, a direct info line for students, but it's not always accessible. Students don't always receive the answers they need, or this line is simply not available. Thank you very much. You also spoke that about the fact that even for short internships, there's an incredible amount of administrative work to do. Red tape. And this is the case both for the students and for the businesses. And there's no way that one can predict what is needed. How could all this process be made easier for students? Students who want to do short internships. Answer. What we're trying to do is to send students and receive students, both for studies and for internship. We're able to send a lot of students abroad, but we're not able to receive as many. Why? Because it's so complicated to bring students into Canada. So first of all, the application process should be simplified. We need to make it easier to recruit people, to get talent. And finally, students should not have to go through the LMIA, the Labor Market Impact Assessment. We work with other institutions around the world, and it would be wonderful if students could, for example, do the biometric testing when they come to Canada and not at home. Sometimes we have students that come from countries where there's not necessarily a biometric clinic. For example, the island of Reunion or elsewhere in Africa where these tests are very complicated to obtain. I'm not sure I have enough time for another question. I'll see you. I'll wait for my next chance.
And now we will move to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for taking time to come to our committee. I'd like to direct my questions to Ms. Dubé and Mr. Farhan. In fact, the Immigration Committee back in 2017 studied the issues of family reunification. Back then, we heard from witnesses that it was almost impossible for family members to come to Canada through a temporary visa. And in fact, if you are undergoing a spousal sponsorship application, that seems to be worse because having close ties in Canada almost automatically gets you a rejection based on 179B, where the official cites that your reason for visiting Canada based on your travel history, the purpose of your visit, and your employment prospects in your own country to say that you have not met the criteria to return to your own country after your visit. So to that end, some witnesses suggested that 179B should be done away with in the application of visa applications for spousal sponsorships. So I'm just wondering, is this the position of the SSA to call on the government to suspend the use of 179B for spousal sponsorship applications for temporary visas?
Yes, thank you. Madam Chair, I wish to address the committee and inform them that indeed is correct. We have experienced extremely high levels of rejection, regardless of the fact that we as sponsors have been approved. So clearly, we can ensure that our spouses are taken care of while they are here. We can ensure that they will return when it is time for them to return. It is essential, especially in times of crisis like now, to be able to be reunited with our spouses. In some cases, we cannot travel to their countries. In some cases, it's not safe to do so. And understandably, we are concerned for their well-being. And it would provide us with a great deal of comfort to know that they are safe in our homes, at least for a visit. So yes, we wish for something to be done to suspend clause 179, or sorry, paragraph 179B as it applies to spouses of Canadian citizens. Thank you.
In the case of Mr. Farhan, your application has been processed for 34 months. And in fact, it was Friday, last Friday, when you finally got your approval after much to do, lots of advocacy from the group, from MPs, from myself on your behalf. And finally, your applications come through. And yet you have had visits to the United States. You have an approved travel visa to the United States, but you cannot get one to Canada. Is that correct?
Honorable Jenny Kwan, thank you very much for mentioning my case here. Yeah, that's correct. At the time of birth of my daughter, that was in 2017, July, we applied for a Canadian visa from New York Embassy. My wife was pregnant. We drove all the way from Buffalo to New York in our car. And we applied, my wife, myself, we were present in the embassy, in the Consulate General of Canada in New York. We applied for TRV, begging them to please allow me to be there at the birth of my first daughter. Those moments were emotional. We were so hopeful that my wife, we mentioned in our application that she's pregnant and we both are present in your office in New York. Please allow us to be together at this precious moment that's not going to come back again. And in 3 or 4 days, our application was returned. Same thing, 179B was the hindrance, was the reason they rejected it. I am in USA. USA granted me the visa to visit on only 4 questions. They just asked me 4 questions. They never asked me for a bank statement. They never asked me for any employment history. They never asked me, and the only thing they asked me, why are you going to USA? I told them, my wife is Canadian. I don't have a Canadian visa. Please allow me to see my wife and kids. And the lady at the other counter, she just looked at a computer for a couple of minutes and she said, visa granted. I had no idea for how long. When I got the passport, it was for 5 years and it's still valid for another half year. I am really grateful to them. And I think Canada should have Canada is known for prioritizing family. But at that time, when we got rejected in 2017, at the time of birth of my daughter, we were shattered. We were shattered. My wife, she went into severe depression and then she took Pristique. It is a medicine for depression. And that medicine caused severe issues with my daughter. She is severely autistic and she's autistic just because of that medicine she took.
Thank you, Mr. Farha. You bring up a point, which is my next point. In the cases where spousal sponsorship applications is severely delayed in the processing, and this has happened prior to COVID, one of the suggestions actually back in March of 2017, again at the Immigration Committee, was that there should be a special temporary visitor's visa for spousal sponsorship applications, for family reunification, so that you can come to Canada while your application is being processed. Is that something that the SSA supports?
Sorry, Ms. Kwan. Sorry for interrupting. Yes, your time is up. So we will have to move to our second round of questioning. We have Mr. Soraya. Mr. Soraya, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Really appreciate it. I also thank all our advocacy group coming up, especially Farhan Ali. You have the courage to come up, and what you went through is a shame. I would say on this system, the current government system, they keep blaming the previous government who's gone for 5 years. That rather than fixing the issue, they're still talking about the previous government. Even a case in Surrey, BC, last month, somebody drowned, 21 years old, and this government wouldn't allow the parents of the kid to come bury their kid. So stop blaming the previous government. The idea here today is to fix the issue. This is what this committee is all about, fixing the issue. Regarding the 21-year-old kid in India, somebody felt sorry for him. They let the parents come without the special permit to come to this country. Let's talk about the real issues here. Please stop blaming the previous government. Let's work together to fix the issues. My let's talk about the students. The students come to this country. It makes impacts on they spend about $23 billion a year to bring it to the Canadian economy, as well as if you come to Ontario, every Tim Horton, every Wendy's, every McDonald's, every Pizza, almost all the restaurants are run by these students. And the owner of these fast food industry is they're asking make the life easier for these students, issue them the visas. We still have plenty of issues with that program. I would love to see if Shanta Munger and Ungo, if they can speak a little bit more on that issue, where the students are going through the problem.
I'm happy to say to reply if that's okay.
Absolutely.
First to say that it certainly is an important issue, and that we have to solve it with urgency because other countries, as I pointed out, are streamlining the process as we speak, and we're in a competition for these outstanding students that do contribute in a major way to the Canadian economy. I want to make a suggestion, and that is to lean on our universities through creating closer ties between IRCC and the universities to help with the permit processing issues and to make specific challenging individual cases streamlined. What I'm suggesting, to be very clear and succinct, is to think strategically, recognizing the role institutions already play in filtering and clarifying students' questions. We encourage development of a case-specific channel for designated learning institutions. A case-specific channel for DLIs is critical to fill a gap in IRCC's client service model and increase the efficiency in IRCC's delivery model. It's a specific recommendation. I think there'll be a big help in the months ahead.
Absolutely. If Shanta Munger want to add something up? If not, I have another question. Sure.
Yes, well, what I would add is that when we talk about immigration and all the efforts that are made to attract people to come here and work here, but we already have trained people here and they want to stay here. So I don't see what the problem is at the departmental level. It seems like there is no communication between what is wanted and what there is no. We are not doing what we need to do. So what should be done is encourage people who speak French, encourage people who have training in the fields that we need here. We have these workers, but we send them back home. So if they have the right skills, let's assess those skills and see if they offer some value, if they could stay here and work here.
No, those. I have 10 seconds. That's okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. So we will now move to Mr. Serre. Before Mr. Serre starts, I just want to ask all the witnesses, if it is possible, you can have headsets because then it makes it easier for the interpreters for the translation. So, Mr. Serre, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Merci beaucoup à tous les témoins pour.
Thank you to all the witnesses for the information you are providing the committee today.
First one I'll address to Ms. Munger and also to Saeed. Saeed, I really want to thank you for sharing your story. I know it's been really challenging for you and your family. I'm glad to hear that things have been approved in the process. But when we look at the pandemic and the difficulties and the challenges we've had here, I want to have some comments here on the operational issues and some of the immigration streamlining. So, for example, last month, we increased the decision markers by 66%. We also are digitizing a lot of the process applications. So when we look at now finalizing 6,000 applications a month, nearly 50,000 by the end of the year. So just want, from your experience and knowing how we're fixing the system, I just wanted to get your comments to see how you feel about this, and will this help members of your organization?
Thank you very much, Honorable Sir, and giving me a chance to further clarify the things. My case, like everybody knows, 34 months it took, and we applied for GCMS notes, CSIS, RCMP, and CBSA. And finally, we applied in August. We were like in the dark, like where the application stands right now. There's no communication from IRCC. And at the mid of September, we started getting the notes. Everything in the notes was clear. Eligibility was clear. Like as you said, that 6,000 was the target. Now what I'm trying to point out is the security chapter was blank. There was no information as usual. So my wife and my two little kids, they went on protest in front of Mr. Marco straight 6 days, whether rain or shine. That converged the attention, that brought the attention of MPs towards my wife and my kids. And MP Jenny Kwan and other respectful honorable MPs, they started contacting us. And when Jenny Kwan, her office, contacted IRCC, they discovered that my application was already done in September. But the file was collecting dust on the table. And after she inquired, the very next day I got decision made. And after that day after that, I got the passport request. So that's the performance we can see. And there are so many people I know in my own country, my own fellow men here in Pakistan, they're stuck for years now. Some are stuck for 4 years, 5 years. Thank you.
Exactly. So thank you. Ms. Munger, can you answer the question about the markers and the digitalization applications and the process that we're going through now and how we're trying to fix the system moving forward?
Je pense que c'est peut-être plus Madame.
I think it's Madame Dubé who could probably discuss this about the testimonies.
Yes, thank you. So we can say that our group was very pleased to hear about the announcement, and we have begun to see some small indications of results. We do have concerns, however, that the total amount of files that will be processed by the end of this year does not approach the amount of PRs that were intended to be distributed this year for spouses of Canadian citizens. So we are very eager to know if increased measures will continue on into the new year in order to process those additional files that will need to be processed. And we are also obviously very eager simply to be reunited for a visit as soon as possible. So we do urge the government to look at solutions for temporary resident visas for our spouses. Thank you.
And Ms. Dubé, were you aware when we took over in government, there was 75,000 spousal applications in the backlog that we're trying to correct?
Yes, I have done the research and discovered a lot of the patterns that existed prior to this. And I do recognize that the Liberal government has increased the number of PRs issued over the years for spousal sponsorship.
Sorry for interrupting, but the time is up. And with that, we come to the end of our first round. I want to thank the witnesses for your important input towards this study. If there is anything which you want to highlight for the committee members and you have not been able to share it today, you can submit it and submissions can be sent to the clerk of the committee. So with that, we will suspend the meeting for 2 minutes.
On the point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Kwan.
Thank you. We started our meeting at least 4 minutes late, according to my time, and because of technical difficulties and what have you. 7 minutes? 7 minutes, according to Ms. Normandine. And if we didn't actually start late, we would be able to get through our second round of rotation per our routine motions wherein Ms. Normandine and myself would be able to get our 2.5 minutes worth of questioning. So I'm hoping that we're able to do that, Madam Chair, and I'm hoping that there's goodwill from the committee members so that we can finish this panel with our 2.5 minutes. I see a thumbs up from Ms. MP Dollywall. I'm hoping that we're able to do that, Madam Chair, before we move to the next panel.
Point of order, the same point of order. So my only concern is if we go over here, then are we going to go over in the next one? So
that's what.
all.
That's what I want to clarify. That you want to take the Ms. Kwan, you want to take the time out of the second panel because we have 3 more witnesses for the second panel, and we have to end our meeting at 5:30.
I would really like to actually get an answer from Ms. Dubé to my question, so I would prefer to get my 2.5 minutes in this round, if I may.
So do we take the time out of the next panel? No. So we don't have unanimous consent on that. We don't have unanimous consent on that. There is already a member saying no. They don't want time out of the second panel. So.
Madame la Présidente, sur le même point d'ordre.
Madam Chair, I'm prepared to let her use my time if she wants.
To end the panel here. If we go extra, we will have to take the time out of the next panel, and I don't have the unanimous consent for that. So with this, we will end the first panel here, and we need to suspend the meeting for 2 minutes so that we can have the next the 3 witnesses, and Mr. Clerk will do a quick sound check for the witnesses for the second panel. So we will suspend for 2 minutes. to the order. For this round, we have 3 witnesses appearing before us. We have Chantal Deloge, senior partner from Deloge Law Group. She is not a stranger to CIMM committee. Our second witness as an individual is David Ojo. Welcome, David. And the third person is representing Faces of Advocacy. We have Dr. David Poon, the founder of the Faces of Advocacy. I welcome you all. Thanks for appearing before the committee. We will start with Chantal Deloge. Ms. Deloge, you have 5 minutes for your opening remarks. Ms. Deloge.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the committee for inviting me today. I'm an immigration and refugee lawyer with over 20 years of experience. I'm also the co-author of an immigration and refugee law textbook. I run a law firm downtown Toronto with 12 staff, and we do immigration only on a full-time basis. And I base my comments today based not only on my own experience and that of my staff, but I've also taken the liberty of canvassing my colleagues from coast to coast to get some opinions from other lawyers as well. The state of file processing from approximately March 2020 to July 2020 made it evident a very alarming state of unreadiness for a large-scale disaster and an inability to adapt quickly in an unexpected emergency. From March to July, most immigration lawyers would tell you that there was virtually no movement on any immigration file, and most of our time was spent trying to explain to clients that we didn't know what was going on and we had no way of finding out what was going on, and we didn't know how long anything was going to take. If we turn first of all to the family reunification impacts, for sponsorship of spouses, even up until now, just to get an acknowledgement of receipt is taking 4 months or even longer. That means 4 months or more just to find out whether your file is even complete and has been entered into processing. And even worse, if a client has submitted a file that's incomplete, they've wasted 4 months before they find out that their file is not in the queue and they have to start all over again. The processing times posted by IRCC on their website, in my view, are no longer accurate. The processing time for overseas and inland spousal sponsorship still say 12 months from start to finish, but there's no way that that could possibly be accurate if an acknowledgement of receipt is taking at least 4 months. Most spousal sponsorship interviews at visa posts have been canceled, and I haven't heard of any of those interviews being rescheduled as of yet, and I have not heard of any provision being made for video interviews. I had one such case that was postponed in March, and to date, there's still no news as to when it will be rescheduled. And given the prevalence of video technology, it's hard to understand why these interviews cannot be done remotely. Another complication to consider is that many couples right now are physically unable to get married in order to even start their sponsorships. In 2015, the Immigration and Refugee Protection Regulations were amended to eliminate the recognition of proxy marriages, meaning marriages where both spouses were not physically present in the same place at the same time during the ceremony. That eliminates now the possibility of people doing online weddings by video technology. And just the other day, I spoke to a couple where the woman is in Canada, the man is in China. They want to get married, but she cannot go to China because of travel bans, and he cannot come to Canada due to a lack of a visa. So they cannot get married, who knows for how long, and it's very heartbreaking. Even where couples reside together in Canada and are not separated by distance, these delays have a serious impact because the applicant, and if they have children, they usually do not have health care coverage while they're waiting. Some of these children are going to school in Canada and taking risks with respect to COVID, and they don't have any health care coverage. One of my colleagues mentioned that they have a lot of family reunification pending dealing with the consulate in India, and no decisions are being issued despite numerous follow-ups and requests. Additionally, applications submitted after March are being held up because biometrics can't be done for many people because visa application centers are closed. Unlike with sponsored parents, sponsored spouses have a very difficult time getting visas to visit their spouses in Canada. Visa refusals of these kind are very common. One of my colleagues described it as the kiss of death. If you're a spouse trying to get a visitor visa for Canada, because officers simply don't believe that you're going to go home after your visit once you get a chance to reunite with your spouse in Canada. With respect to international students, they're in an extremely difficult situation. Many have had to defer their admission several times. Many have lost money. Many do not know if or when they will be able to come to Canada to study at all. They've dropped courses. Many of them, their graduations are now going to be delayed because of the pandemic. And a final comment with respect to the parent and grandparent sponsorship lottery. The lottery system is much better than the systems that have been in place before, but it needs to be weighted so that people who have tried more than once to sponsor their parents will have a better chance in the lottery than if they're starting for the first time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Delage. We will now move to our next witness, Mr. Ojo. Mr. Ojo, you have 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to take a moment to thank all members of the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration for allowing me to appear virtually today, 27th of October.
Mr. Ojo, can you please stop? I think the interpretations are not right. Are we okay? Are the interpreters able to hear? Can you hold the mic a bit near to your mouth as you speak?
Okay, that's fine.
Say check.
Check.
Can maybe we will go to our next speaker, and meanwhile we can figure out. Mr. Ojo, we will come back to you after the next witness, and we will try to figure out if there is any problem which can be corrected. Can I please request Mr. David Poon to please give your opening remarks? Mr. Poon, you have 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Thank you very much to the committee for having me. My name is Dr. David Edward Uwe-Poon, founder of the Faces of Advocacy. We are a grassroots Canadian organization of over 8,700 people on a campaign to safely reunite families in Canada during the COVID-19 travel pandemic. From my understanding, we were directly responsible for the October 8th extended family and compassionate travel exemptions, and we are thankful to the workers in the ministry who pulled off that task. COVID-19 exposed a number of systemic inequalities in Canada. Immigration was not immune to that. I have maintained I do not believe the government set out to intentionally keep families apart. I believe we just fell through the cracks. But there are some things that must not fall through the cracks. Family is one of them. I am here to loudly and clearly make the case for collaborative, transparent immigration reform in Canada. The IRCC is using an antiquated, outdated, grossly ineffective IT structure that disproportionately affects Canadian families in a completely inconsistent manner. It is so opaque, so unwieldy, that even the ministry workers who want desperately to help cannot help those who want to. This is a problem. I am not here to berate any hardworking ministry employee, and I am not convinced that these are the faults of only one minister or decision maker. But there are significant systemic flaws in the immigration process today. And for us to fix it together, we must know how it failed. And it has failed. I want to work collaboratively with the government to address these concerns, to help this government and any future governments ensure that the mistakes of the past 7 months are not repeated ever again. There are 8 recommendations in our report, and I will highlight 5. Number 1, consistency for all. When the COVID-19 travel restrictions came in, what Canadians heard from the IRCC, CBSA, Canadian embassies, their MPs, and the airlines was not consistent. My own partner was given a travel authorization by the Canadian Embassy and was denied when she landed in Toronto. In times of crisis, there must be an established, structured chain of communication from the Canadian government that is uniform, widespread, and publicly accessible. No one should be told one thing by one official and a completely other thing by another. Point number 2, compassionate exemption. The travel restrictions began in March 2020. Compassionate exemptions were given in October 2020. There are 7 months of miscarriages left unsupported, 7 months of births held in solitary, 7 months of cancers fought alone, and 7 months of deaths without a final embrace. Donna McCall is a Canadian ICU nurse. She's a mother who died saying goodbye to her adult children on FaceTime. Committed partners, siblings, grandparents, I actually do understand how long that took to figure out. That was a systemic change. It required a lot of different groups and different stakeholders. I understand that there were delays to get that to happen, and that's why I'm so thankful to the government that it happened, albeit much later than I wanted. But there is no scenario on earth that it is acceptable that the NHL were allowed to play in Canada before Donna's children were allowed into the country. I state this again very clearly. NHL players were able to navigate the system of stakeholders, immigration, and public safety to play in Canada, all of them foreign nationals, before the children of a dying Canadian mother were allowed into the country. This is what happened. There must be a principle that states that above any broad travel restrictions, compassionate exemptions must be publicly available and accessible to Canadians. I strongly suggest calling it Donna's Rule. Point number 3, upgraded IT infrastructure. We need a cohesive, transparent, trackable system for the IRCC. The extended family exemptions opened on October the 8th, 2020. And according to our internal tracking, about 200 of those exemptions have not been approved by the promised 14-day turnaround time. The 14th-day mark comes in about 24 hours. Interestingly, though, applicants after October 15th have been approved expediently, and we're thankful for that.
Sorry, Mr. Poon, I will have to stop you here. Your time is up. Maybe you can talk in the round of questioning. Now we will go back to Mr. Ojo. Mr. Ojo, you have 5 minutes for the remarks. Before you start, the clerk would like to talk to you for a quick second. Over to the clerk. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Ojo, we're going to try and improve your audio quality. If you could please turn off your video.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Mr. Ojo, you have 5 minutes for your opening remarks. Please start. Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I want to take a moment to thank all the members of the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration for allowing me to appear virtually today, 27th of October, 2020, to speak on the impact of COVID-19 on the immigration system with specific reference to the renewal of expired confirmation of permanent residence. As contained in my written submission to the clerk of the committee, there are 4 main sections which I have written about. Touch on 1, instructions from IRCC, 2, responses from affected IRCC clients, 3, the realities, and 4, recommendation and conclusion. I am, however, delighted to introduce myself and highlight a few pain points and present our pleas. My name is David Ojo. I am a Nigerian and an approved permanent resident with an expired confirmation of permanent residence due to my inability to travel to Canada during the COVID-19 induced global lockdown. I began the immigration process in the year 2018, received the invitation to apply in April 2019, and eventually submitted my application on the 25th of May 2019. My application was finally approved in December 2019. I had planned to travel to Canada on the 25th of March 2020, having left my job in February same year. However, due to the travel restrictions in my home country, I was unable to travel and now have my permanent resident visa and COPR expired. I am a chartered accountant, a seasoned ex-banker, and an active member of a group of approved PRs with expired COPRs in Nigeria, as well as other multinational social networking groups where information sharing is done. I represent the affected COPR holders who are exempt from the current travel restrictions in Canada, but with expired COPRs and PRVs. We all have since left our jobs, sold our properties and liquidated our investments, terminated lease agreements in our respective home countries, withdrawn our children from school in a bid to settle permanently in Canada, but have long been waiting on IRCC to issue a travel authorization letter. We have complied with IRCC's instruction to raise a ready-to-travel web form, many of which were raised since the last 4 to 5 months. We have been seriously impacted with the long and inexplicable delay from IRCC with no end in sight. In August 2020, I started an online petition addressed to the government of Canada and IRCC to fast-track issuance of the travel authorization letter for the expired COPR holders, which has so far garnered over 3,000 supporters. I have been interviewed by Mark Outson of Global News Canada and Shelby Trevino of CIMM News Canada to share my story and those of others waiting on IRCC to extend their COPRs and issue travel authorization letters. Sadly, I am still waiting on IRCC to settle in Canada. Honorable MP, please permit me to request the following. 1, IRCC should be prevailed upon to close all expired COPR cases in the year 2020 and not carried forward to 2021, as all expired COPR holders are still hopeful to arrive in Canada this year. Our lives have since been on a standstill. We are highly skilled economic migrants, and we bring skills that will be valuable in driving economic growth through the pandemic and beyond. 2, issuance of authorization letter should be automatic and not conditional. This will increase the processing timelines and also reduce the already stretched IRCC workforce and help channel resources towards the processing of pending applications. Thirdly, waiver of remedicals requests and other expired documents as determined by visa officers. This becomes necessary as these are already approved files in addition to the cost implications and inconveniences of carrying out medical examinations. Lastly, as an alternative to authorization letter, an instruction could be sent to the immigration department of the home countries of all the affected IRCC clients to allow boarding with expired COPRs or PRVs. Once again, I extend my sincere appreciation to this committee for allowing me to appear and act as a witness to the study on the impact of COVID-19 on the immigration system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ojo. Thank you to all the witnesses for their opening remarks. We will now start our first round of questioning. We will start with Ms. Dencho. Ms. Dencho, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank
and I'd
you.
like to say thank you to the witnesses for joining us today. Your testimonies were excellent and very powerful, and it's just great to have so many expert witnesses on today's panel. I have a number of questions. My first will be for Dr. Poon. Dr. Poon, I first want to say a sincere thank you to you for this burden that you've been really bearing for the last 7 months as you've got together Faces of Advocacy and really brought this issue to national attention. And it's really been heartbreaking to hear about the stories that you've brought forward, but I'm very grateful that you have. This committee may not have come together as quickly without the work that you've been doing. So thank you for that. Dr. Poon, you know that on October 8th, as you mentioned in your testimony, the minister had announced a special reunification process for the adult children and common law spouses and those separated, or pardon me, not common law spouses, committed couples separated because of the border closures. My understanding is that deadline that the minister promised is in fact tomorrow. So I'd love you to share with the committee your experience with talking to those who've applied. Do you have confidence that the minister's deadline of tomorrow will be met and that families will be able to be successfully reunified as was promised by the minister on October 8th?
Thank you, MP Damsho, and I would like to make sure that the world knows that my team has been fantastic, Faces of Advocacy together. In regards to tomorrow's deadline, we were promised 14 business days to hit that time. I have in contact with IRCC. I've given a list of the people who we are calling the missing 50, even though the number is closer to 100 to 200 of people who are not been processed. We have been promised that it would be 14th day business days. I believed them. I do not think we will hit the 14th business day. This is very concerning. People who have applied after the initial 8th and 9th, so after it started, have been applied very fast, and we're grateful for them. However, the majority of people who have applied on the 8th and 9th who apparently appear to be American, and those people have not been processed with the expediency and commitment that we have been promised.
There we go. Thank you, Dr. Poon, for that. I appreciate that very much. My next question is for Mr. Ojo. Mr. Ojo, thank you for joining us all the way from Nigeria. Greatly appreciate your testimony today. Just for folks that are watching from home, just to reiterate, you were approved to come to Canada and move your life here. You're highly skilled, going to bring a lot of economic growth to our country. Yourself and many others across the globe who are approved to come and then were unable to come because of the border closures. And your application has since expired, which we know there are thousands of people across the globe who have expired PR applications. I can't imagine the financial and emotional implications this has had on you and the thousands of others across the world. And my understanding is you haven't really heard anything from Canada of when you'll be allowed to come back, and you listed a lot of really great policy options that I think are worthy of discussion. But since we have limited time, Mr. Ojo, I would love for you to tell the committee if you could speak to the Minister of Immigration and explain to him what's at stake for you and the thousands of others. What would you say?
Thank you, MP Dancho. So if I had the opportunity to speak with the Minister of Immigration, right, it would be the issuance of the travel authorization letter. So we were promised this travel authorization letter since June, July, and we're talking about 4 months ago, 4 to 5 months ago. So we all waited for about 3 months before IRCC came up to say, okay, guys, you have to submit your ready to travel web form and include your settlement plan. We did all this, and it has been a wait game. So all we do is we send a mail, right? We send our web forms, we try to call, and we're told to wait, and we're told to wait indefinitely. So it is difficult, considering the fact that we all have left our jobs, our lives are on a standstill. So it is actually difficult for us to continue. So in a nutshell, if I have the opportunity to meet the Minister of Immigration, it will be very simple, clear. Authorization letter. You promised authorization letter, and it has always been immigration matters now. And if immigration matters, you need to prove it to us. It's not about sending it on the website to say, guys, you need to submit your web form. We have submitted it, and you need to live up to your word. So it's going to be very clear. Authorization letter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ojo. And it sounds like from really all the testimonies today, but particularly the two Davids, I'll say that it is clear that the issue at stake is that there's no clarity and really no dignity given to those who are waiting. There's really just very little, if any, communication at all given to the folks whose lives have been overturned. And I just really appreciate your honesty today, and I do hope the minister hears your comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Seconds.
Pardon me? Oh,
you have 45 seconds, yes.
Oh,
it's a 6-minute round.
Well, okay. Well, I will go to, we'll go back to Dr. Poon. Can you tell me a little bit more about the email campaign that you recently started in 30 seconds?
We want to ensure that people are processed in a timely fashion at the 2-week turnaround time. If that is kept, we are very happy. We want to make sure that the temporary residents who are contributing to society in Canada are also included under the same exemptions. We also want to make sure that things are happening in order to allow consistent and fair processing. If there is a method in which to have a better computer system and IT infrastructure for the IRCC, it'll allow trackable, transparent methods for us to check in, see how we're doing, and abate the anxiety that we're having about our applications. It should also help the other David, as long as there's a transparent system of communication.
Thank you. We will end here. Now we will move on to Mr. Reagan. Mr. Reagan, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and allow me to also thank the witnesses for appearing today. By the way, I recognize that the 5-minute opening statements, not a lot of time, but I do hope that you'll have the opportunity with the questions and answers to cover the material you'd like to cover, although I know that even an hour is not very long. That's the nature of this work, I'm afraid. Dr. Poon, speaking of the 5 minutes, you were saying at the very end, you're talking about your internal tracking, and you were saying what happened after October 15th. Could you complete that part, please? I'd like to hear the rest of that.
Thank you very much for your time. People who have applied after October 15th have been processed quite fast. We've seen as short as 6 days. If anything, all those people in the first few days, if they reapplied, they probably be processed faster. The conflicting message is this: IRCC has told us, do not reapply. We will slow down every single person. We are following the rules. The first people, they were given a broken form. They said, do not worry, we'll take care of you. Well, the fact is they followed the rules, they followed the forms, and they were not treated with the 14-day promised turnaround. And that is our major concern. However, if you applied after October 15th, our internal tracking shows that you're pretty good. And we do thank the ministry workers for putting that together.
So are you aware of what changed in relation to that length of time?
If I were to speculate, I would say the first 2 or 3 days of applications have been lost under the computer system. The rollout was challenging. While I thank the ministries for pulling this new system together, the new system must work on day one. And I was reassured that first day applicants would not be adversely punished. I do believe they have been adversely punished in this scenario. And this speaks to a wider issue of needing immigration reform. If there was an upgraded IT system for IRCC, the ministry workers would be able to help us much better. I do believe the ministry workers have the best intentions. I do not believe they have the right tools. We need a systemic reform that is very transparent and trackable for our applications. So if you were to ask me straight up why after the 15th, my best guess is because the initial applications were lost. The 15th, the system was working. And so everyone after the 15th have been treated exactly as they were supposed to.
Let me ask you about your suggestions on how to accelerate the process for reunification. You've talked, of course, about the IT system. Maybe that'll be the focus of your comments in these suggestions, but maybe there are other things that you'd like to focus on.
Thank you for the opportunity. Aside from the IT system, which is a huge ask, but we do believe it is necessary to bring Canada into a new generation of a post-COVID world where immigration helps Canadians and is accessible to Canadians, we also suggest the following. We need an ombudsman to operate for people when it comes to IRCC and CBSA issues. There's currently no independent oversight of those two bodies. At the moment, Faces of Advocacy has taken that role. So I'm very grateful that we have had high-level conversations with people working at the Ministry of IRCC, as well as Health and the CBSA, so Public Safety. However, it should not require the strength of a 9,000 people grassroots movement led by a guy with a gaming headset in order to get justice for these people. It should be done in a manner that is easily accessible to the public. And this ombudsman is how we deliver that transparency. So that is something that I have a lot of ideas for and I can give more information for. When it comes to overall making the system better, CBSA has a mandate to be transparent. And right now, the only system we have for any communication for the general public, not me, the general public, is the email and inbox that already has, according to the IRCC, 17,000 requests in there. If we have an urgent thing, if Donna McCall's children need to see her before she dies, this is an ineffective system that needs to be overhauled. So everything comes down to infrastructure and resources, and that is where the Faces of Advocacy will be.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. How long do I have?
1 minute, 50 seconds.
Oh, okay. Well, I was hoping to ask Ms. Delage about the situation at the border. Obviously, there's been unprecedented challenges at borders, not just for Canada, but for other countries around the world. And I know the government has tried to move as quickly as possible to assist international students. I'm aware that since August, introduced temporary measures for students to study abroad with no time deducted for the length of a future post-grad work permit. And so I guess the question is, what do you think what they've done there is an appropriate balance between maintaining public health safety and trying not to penalize international students?
I'd say it's an appropriate step, but I don't think it has struck a balance yet. In preparation for today, I canvassed one of my colleagues who is an international student recruitment agent. And what she was telling me was that there are still a lot of courses where universities and colleges require an in-person component. For example, there's lab work or there's specific, co-op requirements or something like that. And these students are really being left out in the cold because they can't complete all of their studies online, even if they wanted to. She was also telling me that the government is now moving towards this system where certain colleges and universities and other schools are either approved or not approved to receive international students, even if they're a designated learning institution. One example she gave me, a person has paid $78,000 in tuition for a very prestigious private school and is now unsure whether they're even going to be able to come to Canada at all. And I would further point out that
Sorry
part
for
of the
interrupting, Ms.
post-secondary-
Deloy. The time is up. We will have to move to Ms. Normandine. Ms. Normandine, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Once again, thanks to the panel of witnesses. Your presence here is greatly appreciated. I'd like to start with Ms. Desloges. I have several questions on temporary visas in the context of sponsorships. First of all, I'd like to hear you with the reasons generally provided when a student is turned down, or rather a sponsorship candidate is turned down.
With a visitor visa, the legal test is whether the person will return home after they're finished visiting Canada. And anything about their situation, whether it's something to do with their attributes or something to do with their behavior that might suggest that they have no motivation to go back home after their visit, is going to be a problem. So you can imagine that when someone is married to a Canadian and wants to come and visit their spouse or their common law partner in Canada, one of the main suspicions in the mind of the officer is that, well, once you join your partner in Canada, what's the motivation for you to go back home after your visit? In the law, there is this concept called dual intention, which means that you can have a long-term intention to remain in Canada permanently, but simultaneously hold a short-term legitimate intention just to visit and go home while you're waiting for your paperwork to process. But I think that this concept of dual intention is really not very well used when it comes to spousal or common law or conjugal relationships. It works very well for parents, it works very well for other types of relationships, but there's something about the spousal relationship that makes officers disbelieve that the person is going to go back to their country, even when they have excellent ties to their home country, even when they have children that they might be leaving behind in order to make that visit to Canada. Is something really needs to be done about that situation because it creates so much pain for people.
Merci beaucoup. Vous devancez un peu une de mes questions.
Thank you very much. You've answered one of my questions. I'd also like to know the interpretation of one of the articles of the immigration law. If I understand, it's not correctly applied in the context of sponsorships. Is that right?
Are you talking about dual intention? Yes. So it's not correctly applied. It's that they are very miserly with its application. So, you know, that you can't say that there's anything legally wrong. It's just that they're so suspicious, and the tendency is to just refuse. I was saying earlier that one of my colleagues called it the kiss of death. If if the person you're coming to visit in Canada happens to be your spouse or your common law partner. And also systemically, I think there's some issues too, that people who are visa exempt for Canada, who really, when they come to the border, they have exactly the same legal test as everyone else. They seem to have a much easier go of it, convincing an officer of dual intention, whereas the person from a visa required country has a much more difficult time persuading an officer that they have a genuine intention to go back home after the visit.
Merci beaucoup. Justement sur
and with regard to reasons or motivation, rather, the documents that they'll bring, proof of employment, proof of income, proof of ties to their home country. Do you have the impression that when the visa request is turned down, that there is sufficient motivation or grounds for refusal? Are the grounds properly explained, or do they simply cite 176? Do you have the impression that the documents provided are well used then, or documents provided by candidates?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. The refusal letter that an applicant receives is a generic format letter with some boxes ticked off, just saying we don't believe you're going to return home at the end of your visit, and they give you some generic reasons, which very seldom shed any light on what's actually at play. In order to get the real reasons, you need to order a copy of the computer notes from the decision maker in order to see what the actual rationale is. And may I say that those decisions are often very easy to challenge in federal court because they lack justification and transparency. It often seems that the officers have not properly reviewed all of the documentation or maybe did it in a hurried manner. And when they've listed their reasons, they've failed to really justify with a logical analysis why they've reached that conclusion.
Au-delà de
Beyond the idea of completely abolishing 172B, would the obligation of justifying each and every refusal, would that work?
They do have an obligation to justify every refusal. It's just they don't have to tell you right away what that justification is. So if you were to take it to court, yes, the judge is going to look at whether that decision was properly motivated. I'm not sure whether it make a difference if the officer had to give that justification off the top to every single person. They are really under a lot of time constraints. One thing that one of my colleagues suggested, and I thought it was a good idea, is they should allow the posting of bonds for people. You know, if there's a doubt as to whether they're going to go home after their visit, why not allow for the posting of a substantial financial bond to guarantee that they're going to go home?
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's the only time I had, I think.
Your time is up. Thank you. We will now move to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for your really excellent presentations. I just want to build on Ms. Walsh's comments with respect to dual intent and TRVs and the oftentimes where people are simply rejected. With respect to that, what are her thoughts on the government embarking on providing a special temporary visa for those who have a sponsorship application in place?
Yeah, that's interesting because I'd given that subject some thought in preparation for today. Why do we have a super visa, for example, for parents and grandparents who may or may not be in the sponsorship process? And we don't have anything really similar to that for spouses. There seems to be, I mean, if you're sponsoring your mother to Canada, it's usually not that difficult to get a visa for your mother to visit you while her sponsorship is going on. But yet, if that person is your spouse, there seems to be this real recalcitrance with regard to granting that request. And it doesn't seem to make any logical sense because if you're sponsoring your spouse, the last thing you want to do is make a mess of your case by violating immigration law and then putting your sponsorship in jeopardy. So does it require a special type of visa? Maybe additional clarifications in terms of policy. A super visa itself actually is not a special type of visa. It really is just a temporary resident visa with specific conditions attached to it and extra leniency attached to it. Something like that could be developed for spouses as well. I mean, if the minister were to say to officers that, you know, they want a little bit of extra consideration for spouses and to take X, Y, and Z into account, the way they do with super visas, that could be a very good solution, in fact.
Thank you very much. That's exactly what I was thinking, a similar special visa like that of the parents-grandparents super visa concept. Just building on this, I have a boatload of cases with people being stuck in the system. Mr. Ujjal, you talked about a certificate of PR. People actually cannot get their certificate of PR and now are stuck in limbo. I even had constituents who had to leave the country because they could not get their certificate, and without that certificate, they could not get a work permit. And so on and on the loop goes. And so with respect to that, you know, I call on the government to honor biometrics, and they finally just began to move in that direction. So would your suggestion then be for the government to honor the previous certificate of PR and so that people can move forward with their application and without being stuck?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kwan. So if I got the question correctly, you're asking about the certificate that would allow expired COPR holders to come to migrate to Canada, right? I think it's okay, but most importantly, you know, these COPR holders who are currently exempt really need the travel authorization letter. You know,
Mr. Ojo, if you, sorry for interrupting, your voice is, we can't hear properly. If you can turn your video off so that we have better voice quality.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so back to what I was saying. So it's all about our travel authorization letter. So if the government of Canada, IRCC, would issue the travel authorization letter, because as things stand, we cannot board with the expired travel document. So we need this travel authorization letter, which has been long promised, right, to be issued to every one of us, so that we can travel. It's been 9 months. It's 9 months of doing nothing.
Okay, thank you. Well, this brings us to this question as well in terms of transparency and accountability, and that's what Dr. Poon, you had raised. For a long time, actually, the NDP has called for a ombudsperson in the immigration system. This is a problem that didn't occur just because of COVID. This is an ongoing problem with successive governments. So am I hearing you correctly to say what we need now is a ombudsperson who can oversee complaints, who can investigate in, for example, systemic issues that exist in the immigration system, so that we can actually make corrections in these areas and move forward to support people such as yourselves and others who are struggling in the immigration system?
I thank the ministries for allowing me access to their high-level workers. Because of that, we were able to quickly identify the form was broken. We were able to quickly identify the Americans had no place to message, and we are able to quickly identify the missing 50 or 200, depending on how many we actually confirm. Because of this, we need ombudsperson, not only for IRCC, but CBSA as well. Just today, we had a reply back from the IRCC, whether it's system error or human error, but they say that your form was not filled. I looked at the form myself. It was the October 8th form, completely filled. The challenge is the October 8th form was flawed. Now, if this person had no ombudsperson, if the faces of advocacy did not exist, there is no way to bring it up with the high-level people. So I'm thankful to the ministry for allowing me that connection. But we need someone official. We need an ombudsperson, and the faces of advocacy will fill that role until that position is there. Or we could take it.
I'm glad that Faces of Advocacy is doing tremendous work, but there are, of course, many other people who are not getting that support, and the system shouldn't be that way. I have individuals, for example, where the ministry themselves admit that they made an error, and still the person has to go through the entire process from the beginning and really just putting their lives into upheaval. And that's the reality of where people are at today. We have situations where the ministry staff, the agents, for whatever reason, would give contradictory information to people.
Your time is
and
up.
This goes on and on.
Sorry for interrupting, Ms. Kwan, your time is up. We will now move to our second round. And before I give the floor to Mr. Allison, I just want to remind all the members, please direct the questions through the chair. So now we have Mr. Allison. Mr. Allison, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and once again to our guest for being here today. Dr. Poon, love your headset. I think I'm going to have to get one just like that, and I certainly agree with all your statements as well. I think we could spend some more time exploring this stuff. Chantal, I'd like to direct some of my questions to you, and I agree with the statement you made in terms of posting of bonds. I mean, it's always kind of made me kind of curious over the years I've been an MP that if people are worried or immigration officials are worried about people leaving, why not have them post a bond or something? I mean, it just makes perfect sense. And I think there's probably more tools that we could use in order to make some of these things happen. And as was said with all the testimony today, lots of disconnects, right, in terms of what's good for one, what's not good for the other, and just the inconsistencies. Would you like to expand on that again, Chantal? Because there were some good thoughts you had there as you were moving through.
On the issue of the bond?
Yes.
Yeah, so if I'm not mistaken, I mean, I'd have to go back and double check this, but I believe there is a legal mechanism which allows it, but I've never seen it actually used. And it is interesting to me that people in Canada who have already violated Canada's immigration laws and are in detention can post a bond to get released out of detention, and yet people who are incoming to Canada who have not violated anything and just want to show a measure of good faith cannot do the same thing. That doesn't make any sense to me. I certainly think when you mention about disconnect, I really liked what Mr. Poon said earlier about this concept of transparency. There really is, the system is extremely opaque the way it is now, even for professionals like myself who devoted more than 20 years to navigating the system day in and day out. It's still very opaque. And I do agree with Mr. Poon as well that part of the problem is a very antiquated IT structure. Through the course of my career, of course, you chit chat with officers from time to time when you're dealing with people on a daily basis. And one thing that I keep hearing from people over and over again is that the people who work in the government, as well-intentioned as they are, and they want to do their jobs properly, they're really hampered by this very ancient IT system. And, you know, why did it take so long for us to be able to hold a citizenship hearing on Zoom as they're doing now? The private sector has been doing this for 10 years. You know, why is it impossible for an embassy abroad to interview a person for a spousal application by video? Why do we need to do everything in person? It doesn't make sense. And I guess I would just close out that comment by saying that there are a number of really great initiatives that have come out of this too, because necessity is the mother of invention. You know, holding hearings on Microsoft Teams, landing people by email instead of making them do this ridiculous flag pulling, leave Canada and come back in again and make a headache for CBSA. There have been a lot of really great things that come out of this. I really hope that the ministry takes this opportunity to make some of these initiatives permanent.
Thank you. And I guess my follow-up on that would be, you know, bonds are a potential option. What about private sponsorships in terms of the ability to bring people in? I want to know your thoughts on that, and, you know, whether it's some way that we could personally guarantee or look at whatever those mechanisms are, as you know, as happens with refugees. So, I mean, just your thoughts on private sponsorships.
That's interesting. I mean, when someone applies for a visa to visit Canada in the first place, most individuals have an invitation letter from a person in Canada who's inviting them for the visit, whether it's business purpose or personal. But those invitation letters are not enforceable. I mean, a person can say, of course, I want to invite my brother to come and visit me for 6 months, and I guarantee you he's going to go back home. But at the end of the day, you're dealing with another adult person. I mean, there's no way that a Canadian or permanent resident could really guarantee what someone else is going to do. So I'm not sure that any kind of enforceable undertaking would really work in that scenario. I mean, I just don't think it's possible logistically to have some enforceable mechanism whereby you're responsible for the conduct of another grown adult. Yeah, I don't see how that would work.
Okay, and just the last question, about 20 seconds left here. You know, students, it was talked about in both panels, they come here, they spend their life savings, and yet we only allow them to work 20 hours. Any thoughts about increasing that to help them deal with some of the international students and the bills? And I've seen students living in hotel rooms and a whole bunch of stuff. Any thoughts as to whether they should be allowed to work more hours, personally? Just
I don't think
10-second answer.
To work more hours during the academic session because they are supposed to be studying full time. However, there are other, like during non-academic breaks, they really should be allowed to study to work more hours during non-academic breaks, like for example during COVID.
The time is up. We will now move to Ms. Martinez-Farada. Ms. Martinez-Farada, you have 5 minutes.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Alors,
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to speak to you in French. I have a lot to tell you. First of all, thank you for being here with us today. Regarding Faces of Advocacy, I'd like to say hello to a lot of your members with whom I've been in contact over the last few weeks, because I think it's something that's important. We have to get exemptions. I would like to remind you that the pandemic put us in an unprecedented, unknown situation, which we've never experienced before. And it forces to change the department for the better. And quickly, I would like to have your comments on the fact that we are going through the second wave. How can we reconcile the safety of Canadians and at the same time this wish of being able to reunite families, because it's one of our priorities. As you know, Canada is one of the first countries in the world to launch a reunification program for families. So I would like to have your opinion on this, please.
Merci, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I would like to speak French, but my French is very bad.
So there's been an unnecessary dichotomy presented to the Canadian people. Be with your family and everyone dies, or stay apart forever and everyone lives. The sheer fact that we can have NHL players, film people, truck drivers, essential workers come into Canada safely means that there is a safe third path. So I tell all Canadians watching this right now, the faces of advocacy don't want our mothers sick. We don't want our sisters sick. We don't want our loved ones sick. We certainly don't want your family sick. So we will uphold every public safety guideline. If the question is, why do you want to be with your family when the world is in trouble? I ask you, if the world is in trouble, who do you want beside you? That is the answer I give you.
Thank you, Mr. Poon. Madame Deloge.
Ms. Deloge, I would like to go back to the comments you made regarding initiatives carried out by the government. Which one should be made permanent amongst those?
Is with regard to that, citizenship oath takings by Zoom, I think, are a wonderful initiative. It means that you don't have to congregate people together in one room. You can do it person by person, and it's also, you know, for women who cover themselves for religious or cultural reasons, this is a much more palatable option for them as well. The other thing is these landings by email. So if a person is already in Canada and has met all of the qualifications for landing, there's really no reason to call them in for a personal interview to do that. There's really no reason to send them down to the Canadian border to go into the US and come back in and create more work for CBSA officials. And sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, merci. Sorry to cut you here. For Mr. Ojo. Thank you for joining our committee from so far. It's a pleasure to have you here. We know that the pandemic has made process in providing a co-PR difficult because of the patchwork visa applications. The office has been open. We developed a new process for extended co-PRs electronically. I know that these have been approved on before March 18th, and I just wanted to know from your part, how do you think this would help people like yourself to have these process extended electronically?
Okay, thank you, Madam Parada. To extend, I think that was one of the suggestions we gave to IRCC at some point, to say, okay, the only part that is left in this immigration process is for us to become a permanent resident. You know, our application have been approved. You know, it took 6 months for the application to be approved. You know, some of us we did the process for a year, 2 years. So it would be a very good idea for IRCC to introduce an electronic landing procedure, because that's the only thing we need now. We need to be confirmed as a permanent resident. The only thing we have is our confirmation of permanent resident, and it is expired. And because it is expired, like I mentioned earlier, no airline, no immigration department will be willing to board any of these expired COPR orders. So it is simple and very clear. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And quickly, Mr. Poon.
Your time is up, Miss Martinez-Prada, your time is up. If the members and the witnesses are okay, we can have 2 more round of questioning, like for Miss Normandine for 2.5 minutes and Miss Kwan for 2.5 minutes. And we can end with Miss Kwan. Is everyone okay? Can the witnesses stay? Okay, so seems to be in agreement. I will move on to Miss Normandine. Miss Normandine, you have 2.5 minutes for your questioning.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. One question for Mr. Poon regarding the BM006 form for people to have the authorization to come into Canada for married people or partners. We heard one criticism, maybe you've heard it too. We heard that it was difficult to find oath commissioners during the pandemic? And also, with regard to virtual services, could we perhaps consider offering the oath taking online as well?
The form, thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, the first issue with the form was that it did not have a signature panel for the Canadian. That meant an entire day of people with a form that notaries would not sign. Now, this was rectified by the Faces of Advocacy with our high-level discussion, but without an ombudsman later on, how would this get fixed? The second issue is there was no clarity on if you could use it online. Now, I asked IRCC, we never found the exact answer. However, it does appear that online has been accepted. The problem is, if the Faces of Advocacy did not exist with the public messaging, how could any of the Canadian people fill out the form properly? And how do the first few people even know that their issues are being processed, because there's no transparency in a system that doesn't allow them to check? This is the major problem, and these are how we're going to fix it.
Merci beaucoup. Peut-être une...
Thank you very much. A question for Mr. Ojo. I would like to know that are there people who have received their confirmation of permanent residency after March 18th, and that is what impedes them from completing the process? Is that the case?
Sorry, I didn't get the question. Can you come again?
Je peux essayer. Je voudrais savoir si dans votre...
I would like to know if in the group you represent, there's the following problem. People who have received their confirmation of permanent residence after March 18th and who are unable to come to Canada even though their country allows them to travel.
The group I represent, we are individuals who have been approved, well, our applications have been approved before 18th March 2020. So we are exempt from the current travel restriction. And the only thing that is left as things stand is...
Mr. Ojo, the time is up. Sorry for interrupting. We will have to move on to Ms. Kwan.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ojo. We will move on to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you have 2.5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My question is this. I think it was mentioned that IRCC, and in fact, we're doing Parliament virtually, we're doing committee virtually, but yet we can't seem to really get the ball rolling with virtual interviews and for citizenship, swearing in ceremonies to really move forward so that people can get their status. So going forward, maybe I'll start with you, Ms. Delage. Do you think that the government should be utilizing technology to facilitate these kinds of processes for interviews, for tests, citizenship tests, for example, and for swearing in ceremonies for that to take place as such?
Absolutely. I mean, this is technology that the private sector has been using for decades, and it's baffling to me how we can't use it in IRCC matters. You know, I just had a couple of weeks ago an entire refugee hearing done online via Microsoft Teams. That is perhaps the most sensitive subject matter I could even imagine. And if the refugee board can hold a refugee hearing online, it is beyond me why a visa officer cannot interview a spousal sponsorship applicant or a visa applicant also online. This technology is out there. It's available to everyone. It's as secure as it could possibly be. I mean, you're never going to have a perfect system. But I mean, anybody who has a bank account has personal information online. I think the government just has to accept that there's going to be, you know, a little bit of a risk that you have to take in order to bring the system into the 21st century.
Thank you. Just to build on bringing things into the 21st century, is very confusing to me how it is that we can't have an online system for representatives or the applicant themselves to go online to check the status of the application instead of having to phone through to IRCC and then often getting inconsistent information and contradictory information. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the computer system and the IT infrastructure in IRCC is notoriously out of date. I really think that you know, the government of the day has to bite the bullet and just invest in upgrading that infrastructure. Yes, it's a headache, it's difficult, it's going to be expensive, but if you look at the human cost and even just like the literal cost of all of these mistakes and inaccuracies and all of this back and
Miss
forth that goes on
Deloge, we will.
basis.
Ms. Deloge, sorry for interrupting. The time is up. Thanks to all. With this, we will come to an end for the round of questioning. I would take this opportunity to thank all the witnesses for appearing before the committee today. If there are any things which you want to highlight and you have not been able to discuss them today, you can send in written submissions to the clerk of the committee as we continue this study. So on behalf of all the members, thanks to all the witnesses for appearing before the committee and providing important information as we get through this.
Madam Chair, before we close, I want to...
I can't hear you, Ms. Kwan.
All right. Before we close, Madam Chair, I wonder if we can also ask the clerk to extend that offer to the first panel of witnesses to ensure that they too can submit additional information. As we noted, many of the panelists, we were cut off to actually, even for them to provide a quick answer. And so I think it would be very useful and helpful if we extend that invitation to them to submit further comments if they like.
We will do that. And I said in the end also in the last panel, but if this panel has any issues they want to raise, please send in your written submission. So with that, thank you to all the members for joining the meeting. The meeting is now adjourned.